President announcing a 17% tariff this month on tomatoes from Mexico.
Now, supporters of the tariff say this will help rebuild the shrinking U.S. tomato industry.
The tomatoes and tomato products across the country could be on the way up.
Yeah, so this week, President Donald Trump announced a 17% tariff will be in place for tomatoes from Mexico.
It started with a tomato and ended with a billion-dollar betrayal. Tomatoes from Mexico make up 2/3 of America's supply, worth over $3 billion a year. But now, the U.S. has dropped a sudden 17% tariff on them. That's not just a tax. It's a direct hit to Mexico's farming industry and a slap to decades of cross-border cooperation. And Mexico? They're not staying silent. Let's break it down in today's video. Note, this video is an independent analysis based on public sources. It does not represent any organization or political stance. We encourage you to think critically and share your thoughts in the comments. Once a powerhouse in U.S. grocery stores from Florida to Arizona, the $8 billion tomato industry is now shifting north, quietly but drastically. Prices in the U.S. are already spiking, up 30%. Small retailers are folding. Latino farm workers in Florida are losing jobs. But here's the bigger story. This isn't just about tomatoes. It's about trust, power, and how America may be losing its grip on its own backyard. Mexico took the hit, but didn't fire back with words. Instead, they got moving. They reached out to Canada. No drama. No headlines. Just results. Cold rail lines were built. New distribution hubs were set up. Now Mexican tomatoes are rolling into Canadian cities where stability and fairness matter more than political games. Meanwhile, the U.S. is facing a new reality. On July 14, 2025, the U.S. officially scrapped the 2019 tomato agreement with Mexico. No warning, no exit plan, just a cold announcement, and doors beginning to close. The tariff might seem like just another trade move, but experts say it was more than that. It was symbolic, a message, and Mexico received it loud and clear. After 30 years of working side by side, trust has been broken. Imagine two tomatoes, one grown in subsidized Florida farms, the other from Mexico, traveled over 2,000 kilometers, grown by farmers earning under $10 a day, yet just as fresh and far cheaper. But after July 14th, that Mexican tomato costs nearly 20% more, thanks only to a political decision. MarketWatch reports that wholesale tomato prices could surge up to 40% in the coming months. States like California, Illinois, and New York will feel it the hardest. But the damage in Mexico isn't just financial, it's emotional. A partner treated like a suspect. And while the U.S. tightened its borders, Canada opened theirs. Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. Quietly, they welcomed Mexico, Indiana. No protests. No speeches. Just cold railways, refrigerated logistics, and smart trade. Mexico didn't yell. It acted. So the question is, was this all worth it? Are Americans okay with paying more for tomatoes just to prove a point? Is the U.S. sacrificing billion-dollar industries in the name of politics, while Canada wins without saying a word? Experts now believe this 17% tariff may have triggered something deeper, a shift in power. Mexico has options, and they're choosing respect over rivalry. One tax, one fruit, one broken partnership. When the U.S. closed the door, Mexico didn't beg to get back in. They built a new one. And barely 3 months later, intermodal cold shipments from Mexico's Baja region are rolling straight into Ontario and Quebec. Fast, quiet, determined. This isn't just about tomatoes anymore. It's about who you trust at the dinner table and who you're willing to lose. They didn't break the wall. They went under it. When the U.S. built a tariff wall, Mexico didn't argue. It innovated. They built a cold, clean tunnel beneath the chaos. One that bypasses borders, inspections, and delays. This isn't just about avoiding red tape. It's about changing the game. Using specialized rail containers that maintain a steady 1 to +1 degrees Celsius. Mexico can now deliver tomatoes that stay fresh for 4 to 5 days. And by using rail instead of road, transport costs dropped by 15%. That's not just smart. That's revolutionary. Behind this bold move wasn't a politician. It was a logistics engineer, the president of the Anarm Agricultural Export Association. His words? We're not acting emotionally. This is the end of a long dependency cycle. If one market sees us as a risk, we'll go to another that sees us as a partner. That partner? Canada. While Washington raised barriers, Ottawa opened its doors, quietly, consistently. No tariffs. No drama. No policy reversals every 4 years. Just one thing Mexican exporters truly needed. Stability. Think of it like a marriage. Mexico didn't fight to fix the old one. It left. No shouting, no social media wars. Just results. They responded with refrigerated railways, strategic distribution deals, and a shift that's about to reshape North American agriculture. According to FreightWaves, nearly half of all fresh tomato exports from Mexico will go to Canada by 2026, up from under 1% last year. And it's not just tomatoes. Butter, strawberries, bell peppers, they're all switching lanes. Mexico is no longer a transit stop, it's a logistics powerhouse. In cities like Toronto and Vancouver, new Mexican logistics hubs are rising. The government's even funding better post-harvest storage and supporting exporters with financial tools. Quietly, a Mexican trade delegation visited Ottawa to lock in long-term cooperation. So here's the question. If Mexico can reinvent its supply chain in months, does it still need the U.S.? Or should the U.S. ask itself, is a 17% tariff really worth breaking the supply chain it used to lead? Meanwhile, Canada is doing what seemed impossible, becoming Mexico's top agri-import partner, without making noise. Tomatoes may seem simple, but they're fragile, perishable, and critical, from Vancouver breakfasts to Montreal salads. Until 2025, 70% of Canada's fresh tomatoes came from the U.S., until that system cracked and Mexico stepped in. Sometimes you don't need to knock. You just walk in when the time's right. Where the U.S. raised taxes in the name of protecting farmers, Canada protected consumers. No accusations. No chaos. Just a smooth customs system and clear food laws that don't leave exporters guessing every morning. When Mexico's cold trains began arriving in Ontario, the shock wasn't the tomato quality. It was the speed. Big chains like Loblaws and Sobeys sent logistics teams to Mexico. They didn't just buy, they built partnerships, signed 5-year deals, and standardized packaging. While the U.S. called Mexico a risk, Canada called them a partner. The Canadian Agricultural Council predicts Mexican tomato imports will increase 6-fold within a year, reaching nearly 20% of the market. Meanwhile, U.S. tomato prices rose by 22% due to tariffs and instability. Mexican goods? Down 8%, thanks to smooth logistics and cooperative policy. If there's a symbol for this shift, it's salsa. In the U.S., it's hot and intense. In Canada, it's smooth and balanced. Mexico once made salsa for America. Now, it's serving a milder, stable version to Canada. Once seen as a polite bystander in the U.S.-Mexico trade battle, Canada's quiet approach is now its greatest strength. It didn't choose sides. It just kept the door open and set the table. And sometimes, that's all it takes to win. What if a single tomato could tell the story of global power, broken trust, and rising food prices? As a supplier, do you go for a massive but unstable market or a smaller one that listens and respects you? And as a shopper, do you pay $4 for patriotic tomatoes or $2.80 for ones that are fresh, fast, and free of politics? Not every country has $1 trillion GDP, but any country can be reliable, with stable policies and respect for partners. Mexico isn't heading into chaos. It's moving towards smarter, sustainable trade. Canada, quiet but steady, is showing how it's done. No noise, just trust. And who's really paying for America's 17% tomato tariffs? Not Mexican farmers. It's the everyday American shopper. In 2025, dinner tables across the U.S. are missing a key ingredient, not because people don't want tomatoes, but because policy made the decision for them. Prices soared 30 to 45% in just 2 months. In Raleigh, beefsteak tomatoes jumped from $2.99 to $4.35 a pound. In LA, Roma tomatoes shot up from under $1 to $3.80. And the change isn't just in stores. Restaurants are cutting fresh salsa. Pizza chains are switching to canned sauce. And school salads no longer include tomatoes. U.S. importers weren't ready. Many tried turning to Guatemala or Peru, but higher shipping costs, delays, and quality issues followed. Meanwhile, Canada quietly signed long-term tomato deals with Mexico. No drama. Just smart trade. This isn't just about food, it's about trust. Break a supply chain. And you don't just lose goods, you lose relationships. And who suffers most? The 99% of American consumers left out of the policy conversation. From Detroit to New Jersey, Texas to California, people are struggling with every dollar at checkout. In Brussels, EU trade officials are watching this new model closely. What if allies stop playing by U.S. rules? Mexico didn't retaliate, they rebuilt. They restructured trade, creating routes that bypass America entirely. Europe is taking notes. So is South America. Brazil, Colombia, and Peru used to be backups. Now they're rising players asking, if Mexico can break free and thrive, why can't we? This isn't just about tomatoes. It's about global realignment, economic dignity, and a warning. When your neighbors stop needing you, you might start needing them. This was just the beginning. Hit that subscribe button and buckle up. Digital Garage has so much more in store.